Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning and welcome to a Tuesday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to carry. It's Tuesday. It means good old Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show. And then second portion of today's show, we're supposed to have Willie Jackson. It looks like we're going to have him tomorrow. We're going to have Graham Hall from 24/7 Sports, talk a little recruiting. People love recruiting and what have you. But not a whole lot going on in Gator sports right now. Women's golf is continuing in their regional today. Men's start, I think, this weekend. Softball, game one of the SEC tournament tomorrow night, 8 o'clock against Kentucky. And obviously baseball, big series this weekend here against the Vandy boys rolling into town. Good morning, buddy. You're on the Titan MR hotline. What's happening?
Good morning to you, Shane. Titan MRI, the big factor. I'll get it out. Factor in horse racing. You're telling me about the fact that there was a horse that got scratched that had a connection with Titan MRI, right?
Yeah, Joe's family had something to do. I think they owned Forte, but didn't work out. So unfortunately, I saw where Forte's not running in the next event. What is the Preakness?
Preakness, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
it's unfortunate because he's a good horse, broken here, really trained here by the O'Farrells, that Ocala Stud friends of mine, and beautiful horse. But that's horse racing. It's very fragile now anymore, and especially with the number of deaths they had at Churchill Downs this past week. They were not related to anything particularly, and they'd euthanize some horses, and now when there's anything wrong with, they scratch them, and they scratch 5 at the last minute, including your horse, which didn't make it to. Yeah, Skinner didn't make it to the post, and I didn't have the winner either, by the way. So Skinner or the winner. My family had a pool, and 3 of the ladies in our family got that to winner right. So us guys don't know anything about picking the horses.
Yeah. If you missed it last night in the NBA playoffs, the Heat take a 3-1 lead over the Knicks, and the Lakers take a 3-1 lead over the Warriors. And then tonight, both series tied at 2-2, Celtics, 76ers, Suns, Nuggets. And then tonight, which is a remarkable story, believe it or not, I guess it's not tonight. Maybe it's tomorrow night. Yes, it's Wednesday night. Yeah, which is tomorrow night. No, what is today? Today's Tuesday.
You're right.
Yeah, so
you're right. Tomorrow night. Yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday, the Florida Panthers have a chance to close out the Maple Leafs and go to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's an amazing story, quite honestly. But that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on in sports. Buddy, I saw something on Twitter last night. I screenshot it. And I assume it's true. You know, you can't ever believe everything that's on Twitter.
Right.
Although some people do. Mm-hmm. And this kind of was a little bit shocking, and I think it would surprise a lot of Gator fans. Billy Napier had an offense ranked 4 spots higher than Ole Miss in yards per play in his first year over Lane Kiffin's high-powered offense. Did you ever hear that stat?
I did not. I have to understand. That has to be quantified to me.
Well, it says 4 spots. I'm assuming, I don't know if that's nationwide or if that's SEC wide or what.
Play?
But in yards per play. Yards per play. So, you know, take that for what it's worth.
Okay. Well, you got to be careful about Twitter. I just read a story just now where someone said Archie Manning is redshirt and is leaving Texas because he's redshirted. Obviously, that's a phony account, a phony story, you know. So, but it's got a lot of good information on Twitter, and that sounds like it could possibly be true. I'm not sure how. Interesting. Well, yeah, it does.
Well, I mean, offensively, the Gators weren't great last year. They weren't terrible. They were better than you think, and that's why I'm telling you, people. They're going to win 8 games. Joseph says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, Utah picked up a decent receiver. and I think it's Micah Pittman, FSU transfer there, but I think he's coming off a pretty serious injury.
Mm.
So he may be ready to go. Who knows? But
Hey, Shane, how are we ever going to keep up with this? How are we ever going to keep up with who's playing where? I
well,
barely know the coaches, and all of a sudden players are all over the country.
as I stated on this program multiple times a year and a half ago, whenever the NIL came out, it was the worst thing. I hated it. Of course, all my listeners, or not all of them, some of my listeners kind of took jabs at me about it. It's the worst thing that possibly could have ever happened for college athletics, the NIL.
Unless your team wins the championship, then it's great.
I don't give a dang if we win every championship in every
now
sport.
You do care, Shane.
I'm still against the NIL.
Those are the rules. Those are rules. We didn't make them.
But let me tell you something. NIL has no bearing on what Georgia's done in the last 2 years. Kirby's done a great job recruiting and had really good players. And but the NIL is the worst thing that could have ever happened, and it's only going to get worse. We got a bunch of texts here on the Titan Mark text line. They're just popping in left and right. This is from an anonymous texter. JC is so anti-UF, acts like he isn't. He won't talk about any anti-Alabama. This would never happen in Tuscaloosa with a pro-UF podcast on an Alabama pro podcast. Shane, you're my all-time favorite, but you don't need JC. He gets on my nerves.
That's his job. That's what JC does.
And this is from an anonymous texter. Says, Shane, that's because we don't run many plays. Well, there's a reason why you don't run a lot of plays. There's first of all,
that's got nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter. It's yards per play. Whether you won 4 or 400.
Right. Has nothing to do with it. You're exactly right. But again, statistically, sometimes stats are so misleading. Chris from Cottondale on the Titan MR text line says, here we go. Buddy goes negative against Billy. Shaking my head. Now he's got to go positive on AR to make it complete. Laugh out loud.
Okay. Whatever. I go negative because I said I didn't necessarily agree or know that. You know where I stand on Billy. I'm a big Billy fan, actually. I like him. I think he's got a chance to win. I just think it's up to you, the fans, to decide. Are you going to tolerate 6-6? I mean, I'm just saying. And I hope
it sounds like most of the Gator fans would be ecstatic if they won 6 games this year.
It's beginning to wonder because the ones before they wanted to throw him out if he didn't win 8. So I don't know.
Win 8, buddy. Stay positive.
I'm going to let you influence me. I'm open. I'm completely open. I just need to be shown something. And here's something. I mean, did you see the latest? Friends had this column today on Gator Bait. By the way, you ought to subscribe if you don't. That Matt Hayes, who I don't know if you know, but he's one of the more erudite observers of football and has been on Matt forever. Very sharp mind, talks to a lot of people. He did a quarterback ranking. All right. Now, I don't get into rankings like this right now because they don't mean anything like it, but it's just people's opinion. Anybody can rank or whatever. But he said that the 14th quarterback in his poll on his ratings of quarterbacks was Graham Mertz.
Oh,
I'm just telling you.
No. That's his theory, and I don't know what he's basing it off of. But look, whether Graham Mertz is not going to be your player of the year, he's not going to wow you. But I'm telling you right now, he will be a fine quarterback for what the Gators need.
I'm going to take your word for that, because you know what you're talking about. I'm just saying there are a lot of opinions out there. And those are, I value yours more than anybody's on quarterbacks. And I'm hoping you're right. But if you want to call me negative, because I've tried to be objective, and all I've said to you and will continue to say is that give me some evidence. I don't see it because I don't get to see practice.
And buddy, this again, I
talked about it last night on my show. You and I did.
I like to ask you this.
No.
If Anthony Richardson was going to be, and I'm just using him because he was a 4th pick of the draft.
Yeah.
If he was the quarterback of this year's team, how many games do you think they would win?
8.
What makes you think the difference? They only won 6 with him last year.
I've seen what the guys got for a gun, for an arm. Wait.
Buddy, if there's anything you will ever learn on my program, it don't matter how hard he throws that damn football.
But listen to me. I haven't seen a couple of football games. I'm no Shane Matthews, okay? I'm just saying to you, I, as an observer and writer, and reporter, and commentator on college sports and the Gator sports, I have to have something to go on. I saw Anthony Richardson's physical capabilities. Now, whether that translated into a championship, I don't know. But what I saw in the skill position, just like you, when you evaluate your quarterbacks that you didn't like the Guardians, the fact is you see it. You have evidence to know one way or the other in your mind, in your trained eye, this guy can get this done. I like the upside of a guy who's Superman. I'm sorry, I just like it. Now,
so you like the splash plays in a short.
yeah, but I haven't seen anything.
Like
I haven't seen anything from Mertz. How do I know?
You're not going to see any splash plays. I'm telling you.
I'm not going to say I haven't seen anything that really impressed me about Mertz yet. I haven't seen it. Now, I'm sure others have, including you, and I take your word for that. But if you're asking me to go on the opinion, I can't say, yeah, that went 8 because I have an opinion. I like the guy. You know more than I do. You have more sources. For me, the reporter, maybe I'm ignorant and whatever. Fact is, I'm hoping he's everything you say, but I don't have the evidence.
But again, too many people are focusing on the quarterback, and I know it's the most important position, but this team is going to be better across the board. I think people are forgetting that.
Good. I'm not forgetting it at all.
Okay. Dan says on Facebook Live, and Dan's probably done more research than whoever tweeted this, that tweet that I read a few minutes ago. From what he can see, Florida was at 6.0 yards per play. Ole Miss was 6.3. First was Ohio State at 7.2 and Georgia at 7.2. So
take Dan's word for it. Dan's a smart guy.
Joseph says on Facebook Live, if you go back and watch the games again, you'll see we were just a play or two away in a lot of our games. If we are more consistent, we will be better this year. Yeah.
Well, of course, I agree, and especially on defense.
And he says, I don't think it matters who the quarterback is. If our defense matters. Let me finish. If our defense isn't any better, we aren't going to get any better. I agree. We got to be better across the board, not at one position. Defense was atrocious last year. And Greg says the problem with Anthony is that he made the splash plays, but he wasn't consistent on the simple plays.
Can we stop talking about Anthony? He's gone. Okay.
Well, everybody.
You brought him up. I didn't say a word about him. I never brought his name up. You did, and that's fine. If you want to ask my opinion, I gave it to you. Not that it matters that much. But back. Let's talk about something positive, okay? Like the Tampa Bay Rays. Wow, last night beating the Orioles 3-0. But Shane, and also you kind of chastised me last night for not watching the NBA. But you don't watch it. You go to bed at 8:00. How could you watch it?
I watched the first game. I do not watch the second game.
Well, I watched part of last night's game, all right, blurry-eyed, because you said I should be watching it, and I did. And I saw. Well, I'm telling you, I love the way Golden State passes the ball. But, hey, how about them Lakers now, man? All of a sudden, they're coming out of nowhere, and now they're playing, and they are up 3-1. And did you ever see the play involving Jokic, and the owner of the Suns, at all last night about where he shoved the guy supposedly?
Well, we talked about it, but I still haven't seen it.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're not going to suspend Jokic. I mean, he's
no, they're not. They fined $25,000. He's going to play, and they shouldn't suspend him for that. That's ridiculous. And the owners need to. Don't get me started on that. We talked about last night about how these people get all these rich people get these seats. How'd you like to have all the rich boosters on the sideline of the football game? Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, they have an opportunity. All the rich boosters can sit courtside at the basketball game now.
That's my point. That's my point.
Before we move on, we got another text here from Daryl on Titan text line. Says, I think the Gators are better off without AR. I think we upset Utah, and I can see 8 wins. Sounds as Buddy is being Debbie Downer this morning. Everybody's on you, Buddy. Why are they all over you?
I don't know. I'm just saying. I just give my opinions. I don't really know very much about it because I haven't seen much. If I could see more and talk to more coaches, I'd be more better advised. I got to go off what I read on Twitter and online, and then the interviews he gives, and people like Franz Beard I read and listen to you on the show. I'm not down on Florida at all. I'm really not. I mean, I've been accused of being a sunshine pumper, who all I do is just say, oh, how great they are, I'd like to think I have a little objectivity as a journalist, and I try to say what I think I know, which isn't very much, but what I do think I know, and we'll see. I'm sticking with what I said. Right now, I don't see the evidence, but I'm taking your word for it as the expert that it could be better at quarterback, and it does matter who the quarterback is.
It does, but I've been telling you, is Anthony and Graham Mertz or player X, whoever plays quarterback, are they different? Yes, they're going to be night and day. There's multiple ways to win games. There's multiple ways to lose games. I'm just saying the body of work from player 85 to player 1 on this roster will be better than last year's roster, and they're going to win doing things that help you win football games. It may not be flashy. It may not be a spin move and an 80-yard run by your quarterback or make 6 people miss. It may be Danny Werfel-like. Take your steps, throw the completions, dink and dunk here, and then bam, take a shot over the top, and then play defense and tackle. I mean, there's so many ways to win a football game, and we've been so bad at multiple ways of losing games. We're going to be better this year. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending, right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Buddy Martin on the Titan More Hotline, while Graham Hall, he'll give us an update what's going on in the portal and recruiting. I know
he'll tell you like it is. He's the guy that gives the facts. He's well, he knows what's going on. And by the way, you didn't just compare Graham Mertz to Danny Werfel, I hope.
I'm talking about, look, did anybody think Danny Werfel, when they threw him into the game as a freshman, was going to be what he was? And I'm not comparing him. I'm just saying too many people, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is everybody's complaining that I talk to and I hear and I read about Billy Napier didn't do this in the portal. Billy Napier didn't do that in the portal. Well, people, he felt like Graham Mertz was a guy that could run his offense to win football games. Mm-hmm. He ain't trying to get fired. He's trying to win games. So he went through his evaluation process, which I trust because the best players on last year's football team were guys that he was responsible for putting in the orange and blue uniform. So either jump on board and support what they're doing or sit here and bitch and complain that they didn't sign Sam Hartman or the Coastal Carolina kid that they couldn't get in school or whatever. It is what it is. Get behind your team and let's go try to win some games. So there you have it. And
well, it's kind of like saying, it's my country, and if you don't like it, leave. But the bottom line is, I hear what you're saying, but let me just get right now. Well, yeah, well, it is that for sure. But anyway, the point being that you got to say take the other side. If you're an objective person and trying to have a modicum objectivity, even though we bleed orange and blue, you have to say also, what did Billy Napier get when he came here from Scott Strickland? By the way, happy birthday, Scott, 53 yesterday. He got everything on his list, right? He got to 100. You said to me 100 times, well, they can't recruit till they get their facility.
And they're doing damn good recruiting.
Okay. You said that. I'm just lining it up. I'm not making judgments. So he got the facility. He wanted 100 people on his army. He got that, right? He got an increased budget for recruiting. He got a new NIL deal now. He's gotten pretty much everything he's asked for.
Yeah.
Fans have a right to expect him to win.
Okay,
right?
Well, he's been here 1 year.
I'm not talking about 1 year. No, about this year.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, they're going to be surprised. Okay. And the problem, fans think that they didn't make any so-called splash NIL portal moves, which even if you did, buddy, this is the way that people think. It doesn't matter who you sign out of the portal. They're still going to bitch and complain that you should have signed that guy instead. So anyway,
that comes with the job. Yeah,
right? I have no problem with it. I'm trying to talk some of these people off the ledge because we didn't sign this guy in the portal. I don't know who these people wanted out of the portal to make them feel comfortable going into the season is my point.
Well, apparently Nick found one.
Who?
The quarterback from that he got, that Alabama got.
Alabama got Tyler Buckner from Notre Dame.
Well, I mean, he was
because his offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees,
I know.
recruited and coached him at Notre Dame.
Okay, well, I don't care how and why he got one. And that's what Gator fans are looking for.
Well, Gator fans need to have some common sense that if Billy Napier had had a quarterback at Louisiana that he thought could play SEC football, of course he's going to get that guy because he has a relationship.
Well, they had a defensive back he's trying to get, who's everybody else is going to get. He wants the defensive back. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's something at some point in life, and I get what you're saying, whether it's your religion or it's your or whatever it may be, your goals, whatever, you have to believe in something. All right. I think Coach Spurrier, what he did with you guys in 1990 when he came along was he had confidence, and he brought that confidence and conveyed it, and the people bought into it, and he produced, okay? Without question. I mean, the all-timer. Urban Meyer did it a different way. He came in, he had to go out and hustle and talk to fraternities and teach players the meaning of the words of the alma mater and all that, so educate them and build up a tradition, and he won. Both those guys, they're the reason. Billy's trying to do it through a system and an organization, which I admire. He's obviously very smart. And I loved what he said the other day when he talked about the perils of going into the portal, what you run up against if you don't do your homework, you don't do your diligence on guys in their grades or guys in their passing or physical. And those are the things we don't see and we don't know about. It's just hard today for a fan to see it. Let's say go to one of the Gator clubs and hear him talk and get all excited about it. Coach Spurrier had a way of getting that done. And even Charlie Pell did. Charlie Pell did a tremendous job of building up confidence and building up people. And I'm not feeling or hearing that real buzz right now that I heard back in those days. Now, maybe it will turn around as soon as he beats Utah, which you know what that was last year. Maybe it won't. It's just a question mark right now for a lot of people. And I get that.
Yeah, but the question mark is that people think just because a name is thrown out in the transfer portal that the Gators should go get that guy. But what people don't realize is all the 100-something people that on his staff that are responsible for evaluation may not think that guy can play at Florida or be a good fit for the Gators. Yeah. And he has there's no reason for him to come out and say we don't want that player. You can't do that. First of all,
I get it. So, of course.
So the fans want an explanation, and they don't deserve an explanation because he's not going to give that explanation. Because Buddy Martin, you may go into the transfer portal, and the Gator Nation thinks you're a great player. You sign with Notre Dame. Well, maybe the Gator coaches didn't want you, but they can't come out and say that. So.
No, but there's also these guys that are all competitive on. They all won, including Billy. And he's not getting a lot of those, although his recruiting seems to be picking up momentum. And I hear that the visits they got in June, but we're talking 2024, about 2024. I'm more interested in 2023 right now. I want to see what's going to happen. And he's got to get it together pretty quick.
I'm not worried about anybody in the transfer portal for this year's team.
I'm not either now. No, I'm not talking about now. People who think he's going to go to the quarterback to start this year in the portal, that ain't happening.
No, I'm telling you. And again, I'm just stating this is a fact. The best players that produced the most on the Florida Gators last year, Billy Napier and his new staff was responsible for. That's a fact. And so I would hope that the Gator fans would trust that process, that whoever he brings in here, whether the guy played horrible somewhere else for whatever reason, was the quarterback, was the left tackle, well, it's the damn kicker, that he's going to do a better job here. So we'll see. Kenny says, looking at Alabama prior to the Notre Dame kid coming in, Alabama had no better talent quarterback than UF. Agreed. Saban has had tons of time to bring one in. One of the great coaches in college football who sends QBs to the NFL can't get a better QB. They have quarterback problems at Alabama. That's why I do not think they're going to win 10 games this year. So we'll see if Tyler Buckner wins the job. But I think Alabama is going to go back to old school Alabama, pounding the football. So there you
Shane,
have
can I
that.
say one thing about the gambling deal?
Yes, sir.
You made this comment earlier, and we passed over it. It's a very important one. I mean, like my friend Dick Weiss and Daily News wrote, what did they think was going to happen? All this money and gambling going on around. You're around it, and you legalized it, and you basically let all the fat cats do it. And now suddenly we're reading now this thing about Iowa. You read about Iowa and Iowa State?
Yeah, Iowa State. It's going to be. Look, the same way with the National Football League. They're getting millions and millions of dollars from Caesar Sportsbook, MGM, all this stuff.
Right.
They do commercials about it. I don't know what the right thing to do. I mean, Kyle and I got in some trouble. GA and Brady got in some trouble trying to pay for my parking tickets that I got weekly at Florida.
With football cards, everybody had those.
No, we with some fraternity guys, and
Yeah,
I mean, look, it's a shame, but nobody here to blame. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna with apps and phones and all that stuff. I don't know how they're gonna keep kids from doing it. So
yeah,
we'll see what
and
happens.
Shane, I would ask you, what would you do? And you got to be a little more diligent about keeping your kids educated. The latest thing I read was that Iowa State acknowledges 15 of athletes across 3 sports: football, wrestling, and track and field, suspected of violating gambling rules. And of course, my friend Dickie Rice, what do they think is going to happen when 33 states legalized sports betting in the market the past 5 years? One point I want to make: 1960. There was a famous incident in 1960, and your listeners should be educated about this because it's important. 1960, when Florida played Georgia Tech, and Ray Gray's first season, his old team and the team he played for, Georgia Tech, and there was a guy named John Macbeth who was a fullback, and he was approached by a gambler and asked and tried to solicited to throw the game. And Macbeth, who we all laughed about it, if there was somebody that we suspect might do it, it'd be Macbeth. But anyway, the point was that as a student then. But Macbeth turned him into the FBI, and the FBI ran a sting on him, and Aaron Wagman was arrested and went to prison because of it. And what's ironic about this particular thing is that late in the game, when the game was on the line, Florida playing the mighty Georgia Tech. They were big and powerful then. Had a little quarterback named Larry Libator, and he scrambled, and they ran their first 2-point conversion, and he threw the pass to John Macbeth for the winning score, and Florida had a big win. One of the biggest wins in the history of the program. And Aaron Wagner went to prison. The point being that it was around then, it was around now, it'd be around forever. They have to be educated. This turned out to be a good story. As one columnist wrote, Larry Libator was like 150 pounds, a miniature quarterback threw a 2-point conversion to an honest fullback. And Florida beat Georgia Tech yesterday, 18-17.
So you're writing a story on that, right, buddy?
I am going to write something this week later on about the fact this is not new. But we've all been around it. You've been around it. I've been around it. I've seen it, written about it. And now it's coming back with a vengeance because there's so much prevalence. So what do we got to do? Educate the players and people about the dangers of this, because we've all been basically seduced by it. Quit dollars. How can we make it? We need money and a pair of parking tickets. We're poor. I mean, yeah, I get it. If you played today, you'd have an NIL deal. You never have to worry about that, Shane.
That's true. Well, buddy, who you got on your program tonight?
David Whitley, and he'll be on tonight. We'll talk about this and other things. I'm sure David wants to talk about the pickleball teams. And along with Lauren Meadows, the coach, he'll have trivia live from the Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, like he does every week, giving away stuff. So come join us. We're going to have a good time tonight.
Stay positive, buddy. Stay positive.
I'm positive. Hey,
last year, you were like the happiest Gator fan of all time.
And people always said to me, you're over the top. You're a sunshine pumper. Don't, whatever. I'm not trying to be anything except trying to be a journalist, which is what I'm supposed to be.
All right. Well, I'm not a sunshine pumper. I think we win 8 games, maybe more. There's 2 games that I'm saying that we have no chance of winning.
Utah State and probably Georgia.
not Utah. We don't play Utah State.
I mean,
I'm
Utah.
saying in Baton Rouge against LSU.
Yeah.
Now, ball can bounce our way.
Mhm.
And by that time, we may be playing really good football. But Georgia, I don't think Georgia ain't gonna win, ain't gonna lose a game probably. So
You think they get spanked by Utah?
Florida,
Yeah.
no, no.
At Utah, at Salt Lake, you don't think they're going to get beat?
You just said spanked.
Well, that would be like 2 touchdowns, wouldn't it?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'll let you know. I'm not Utah lost a lot of players. They're a good football team, good program. I don't know the status of Cam Rising either, coming off the knee injury, if he's going to play.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of question marks for them out there.
Well, we got all
So
summer
we'll
to figure that out. They still got to go. They still got to play Tennessee, who's not a lay down.
I think Tennessee's going to take a step back.
Maybe.
So, yeah.
Well, Josh Heupel has done a hell of a job, I would say.
He has,
So-
but they wanted to fire him at UCF too. So, but I think Hendon Hooker was one of those
Freaks.
generational type quarterbacks. I think they're going to miss the quarterback a lot. So, all right, we're going to get to Graham Hall and see if he can cheer Buddy up.
He'll straighten it out.
Good football
He'll tell
players
you.
coming.
No, he'll tell you. He'll tell it like it is. He's a hardcore, trusted journalist. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks.
Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here, Kenny says, here's Billy only problem as far as who Billy goes. Spurrier was well loved before he came, and he inherited a great team from Galen Hall. Spurrier came in with creds with the fans, great coach who took over great players. Meyer came in as well with a great team. He also infected, well, that gum thing just went away, so I can't read it. All right, buddy, we got to get out of here. Appreciate your time, my man.
All right, Joy. Thank you.
That's Buddy Martin. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. We're going to take a quick time out. Come back. We'll be joined by Graham Hall for 24/7 Sports, talking Gator recruiting, transfer portal, any other questions you may have. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Regal Cinemas, The Keys, Dave & Buster's, Palmetto Moon, Starbucks, Visor's Rooftop, and the HBC's restaurant Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, the #1 celebrity polished casual restaurant in America. We'll see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. We're now going to go to the Titan Moore Hotline, and we're going to be joined by Graham Hall from 24/7 Sports, covering the Gators. Good morning, Graham. How are you, my man?
Hey, Shane, good to be here, man. Thanks for having me. Always my pleasure to join the show, man. Hope you've been doing all right.
Yeah, doing great. First of all, I want to ask you, you worked for the Gainesville Sun for a long time where you basically just covered the Gators. Now with 24/7 Sports, I mean, you got to be do you get any sleep?
I try to, honestly. I got to say that the people I work with are some of the hardest workers I've seen in this business. Jacob Rudner and Blake Alderman. If Florida fans aren't following them, they're really doing themselves a disservice. I mean, if I don't sleep, then those guys are I don't know what they're doing, man. They're powered by caffeine and motivation. So yeah, it's absolutely a great gig though. As you know, there's always something going on in Gainesville. So from transfer portal targets, high school recruits, I mean, I never really got a chance to drive out, go to Mainland High School, see some prospects that Florida is covering when I was at the paper. Now I get a chance to do that and really be in tune with where Florida's at in the transfer portal on the recruiting trail. So it's a whole lot of fun. It's a dream job, man.
So let's start with the transfer portal. Obviously, a lot of Gator fans, I hear no matter where I go, they're upset that we didn't get this guy or that guy. But I try to tell them, and I just told Buddy this, and I could be way off base, but I base it on the evaluation process of what Billy Napier and those guys did last year. I firmly believe the best players on our team were guys that he was responsible for. Having said that, there's, I think, the receiver, I guess, from Michigan State that's still out there. Do the Gators have an opportunity to get him, or do they even want him?
Yeah, that second question I think is very interesting. We know that they've reached out to Keon Coleman, but the process with which Florida has worked in the transfer portal, it really hasn't been the quickest pace. If you go back to some of Billy Napier's recent comments, when they evaluate prospects, the film collection process is something that we've documented at Swamp 247. This is a staff that really likes on-the-ground film. They want to see how kids work. They want to see someone's motor, their work ethic, how they are in practice. So maybe the knowledge accumulation process is a little bit slower at Florida under Billy Napier, and that's going to cause you to miss out on some guys, right? That just is how it is. And when you're in contention with 35, 40 other teams, to get someone, maybe someone is in a little bit of a rush to make a decision and you miss out on someone. But what you just said about trusting the evaluation process, going back to how many successful evaluations I think Billy Napier and his coaching staff have to their name, I think that kind of should tell you to maybe pump the brakes a little bit and be a little more patient, that they're going to make some key evaluations. You go back to last year, they get 2 wide receivers during the offseason that I think one really got all the acclaim, and Ricky Pearsall, a great evaluation, I think, in retrospect. But the other one they added was in June through, the JUCO ranks in Ty Chakial Bowman. That's a guy who actually contributed last year over a lot of players on the roster and is in a position to continue contributing this year. So that tells me that this staff, even if they take their time, they find potential contributors. They're not always going after the big name guys. And I think that should tell you to maybe trust the process. I hate to use that kind of cliche here a little bit, but the trust in the evaluation process maybe wants you to kind of not get involved and obsessed with some of these big names and maybe wait and see who they identify as some potential diamonds in the rough to come in here and contribute. Because I think time and time again, whether it was in Louisiana or going back to last year, Billy Napier and his staff have shown that they can consistently do that.
Text on the Titan Mar text line from Johnny. He says, Graham, do you think the reason Xavier Henderson transferred was due to the young talent at the wide receiver position?
I don't. I think that it maybe is a combination of factors. I think that may be one, and that should be a promising thing to Florida fans. Obviously, you have Caleb Douglas, who had a really, really sound spring, improved from last year. You have Andy Jean, who came in with relentless work effort. I mean, he really kind of had a consistent spring camp and has impressed since he's been here. Aiden Mizell really came along towards the end of spring, and you know that they're adding Eugene Wilson here in a couple of weeks. So those are 4 right there that are going to potentially push Henderson for playing time, right? And then you have Ricky Pearsall coming back. That, I think, could be a factor. I think another factor is how run-oriented this offense is going to be this year, right? If you are a wide receiver who a lot of your opportunities last year were catching passes on the perimeter and maybe making two guys miss. And that's, I don't think, one of Xavier Henderson's strengths. You were maybe looking for an opportunity elsewhere. And I think the combination of those factors, where the offense is headed, the other guys on the roster, maybe the quarterback play, we haven't really seen separation of quarterback play. You don't really have this quarterback who can throw it 70 yards and make those dynamic plays like Anthony Richardson. Maybe a little bit of lack of faith in where the quarterback situation is at Florida, where there's still this ongoing battle, per se, between Graham Mertz and Jack Miller. Maybe that's a factor as well. You combine all those factors, it could lead to Henderson finding a new destination. This is a guy who is in his fourth year. He has some familiarity with other guys in the collegiate ranks. My gut tells me CJ Henderson is headed to Cincinnati to play with Emory Jones. So that should kind of, I think, tell you what you need to know there in that situation. And I wouldn't really look at that being that massive of a loss for Florida. No disrespect to Xavier Henderson whatsoever, because I do think he can become a very sound talent who could contribute at the next level, knowing that he contributes on special teams as well. So with that said, I don't think it's due to the freshmen on the roster, although they are extremely promising after this last spring.
The running back position, where do we stand? I think the running back visited that's in the transfer portal from Houston. Obviously, we added the kid from Tulane to add some depth. But do you think the running back from Houston ends up as a Gator?
That's a really good question. I think that they would like to get him in here. It really comes down to what McCaskill is looking for, right? I think that selling him as coming in and being the fifth back in the room, that is a difficult coaching pitch. But here's what it is. You have a chance. You have 3 years remaining if you're McCaskill to kind of wait in the wings, potentially contribute this year. But in my opinion, you have two running backs on this current Florida roster that are not going to be here next season. I think Montrell Johnson is going to have a great year and heads to the NFL after this year. Maybe that's not what Florida fans want to hear right now, but if he's 1,000-yard rusher, wouldn't you want him to do that, right? Then you have Cam Carroll, who comes in for just 1 year. He's going to contribute this season in a kind of an interesting capacity, from my understanding, but he's off the roster after this year. So that leaves you with just Trevor Etienne and Trayon Webb, and you have a chance to sell McCaskill as a guy who could compete for the starting role next season. Whether he's willing to take that pitch, realize that in this time where everyone's looking to transfer and start right away, he has a chance to come in and have a really ideal opportunity to do what Montrell Johnson did at Florida, but next season, where he could be the guy next year. It all depends in my mind whether he's willing to accept that pitch. I think that he could, but I think he's also going to see what his other options are outside of Gainesville right now. This one could be decided here today, or it could be dragged out a little bit longer, because he may want to assess if he has a instant starting opportunity at the Power 5 level.
All right, before we move on to the recruiting portion, last thing with the transfer portal, any thoughts or anybody out there that could possibly become a Gator? It's getting pretty late if you ask me. If you want to go play somewhere, you need to get on campus quickly. Anybody out there that could potentially be a Gator?
Yeah, I'm actually I'm writing about this today on Psalm 247. Just got to plug this as well. So if you want a little more info on a few of the names I'm going to drop, check those out. I think one, Traore, the tight end that's in the portal. You look at Florida's tight end situation. You had several injuries. You have a guy. You lose Keon Zipper, who was their best pass-catching tight end last year. Jonathan Odom's coming off a serious injury. Dante Sanders isn't necessarily a prototypical pass-catching tight end, right? So in an offense that likes to use a lot of 12-man, 12 personnel, you want a good tight end who can potentially contribute in the pass-catching game while also being a successful blocker. That's what Traore is. He's in the portal right now, I believe, from San Diego State. I hope I'm not mixing up my schools. He's absolutely one that should be looked at if Florida is looking to add a tight end, which I don't know if they are, but that is a position that potentially could use a little more depth in the room there. Another, I absolutely, we talked about Keon Coleman from Michigan State. Another fantastic one. Colorado has had a mass exodus. I think I can use that term comfortably right now. Montana, Lamoinius Craig, fantastic name. A wide receiver. We talked about Florida losing Xavier Henderson, maybe looking for a little more depth not trying to rely on 4 underclassmen necessarily around Ricky Pearsall this year. That could be someone that Florida looks at. And then one more name I'll throw out. This is a really recent addition to the transfer portal. That's Jackson Garcia. Jackson spelled Jaxon. Jackson Garcia is an interior offensive lineman, can play guard, can play a little center as well. He's out of Utah, looking for another situation where maybe he can play a little bit more. Florida's interior offensive line situation is a little bit banged up. You got Cam Waits back in January that had that unfortunate torn Achilles tendon. And then Micah Mazuka, I think a lot of people are maybe waiting on pins and needles to see what is the situation with Micah Mazuka moving forward. I mean, you have a guy who could be this all SEC offensive lineman potentially, but he's coming off an injury. His return timeline remains to be seen. He threw out, I hate to even say, he threw out the tweet about entering the transfer portal. I'm not going to lock him in as Florida's starting left guard right now. They may need to add someone else, because if you go back to that spring game, it was Najee Harris, the true freshman out of IMG Academy, who got that start there at left guard. Maybe Florida's looking for another interior offensive lineman. Jackson Garcia is a guy with experience. I don't know his whole situation, obviously, but that is an intriguing name. So several names that are out there. I know it's getting late in the process, but guys entered in mid-April, end of April, April 29th, and they're still kind of awaiting their decision because they really have a lot of suitors who need positions. And I mean, there's several others out there. Remember Harrison Bailey out of Tennessee? I mean, he transferred from Tennessee, a former number 3 pro style quarterback by 247 Sports, goes from Tennessee to UNLV, appeared just once at UNLV last year. He's still in the transfer portal, a former highly recruited guy. So there are still some intriguing names out there. I don't know whether Florida will pursue any of those, but several options to definitely monitor.
Good stuff. Hey, so recruiting wise for 2024, obviously I've seen some publications or what have you, some polls. Gators are in like the top 4. It's like Georgia, Gators, Ohio State, and Alabama. What can you tell us? It looks like they're doing extremely well for 2024.
Yeah, I think that obviously it's still pretty early, and you need to hold a lot of these guys. And as you know, the season finish, I hate to get too high on a recruiting class this early, because we've seen some incredible ones come apart when the season doesn't come to fruition. But what I can say is that this staff has nailed recruiting for this class and the next class specifically. I think that this one, 2024, is obviously extremely important, but 2025 just as important. It's looking like that they could get 2 quarterback commits in the 2025 class right now. They have 2 guys who potentially may be able to reclassify to, you never know, could be a 2023 guy that does end up getting on campus here in the next couple of months. That is a possibility with one of these guys here. I think that when you look at that, having early quarterback commits in the fold, whether it's Lagway, whether it's Simmons, some of the other guys they've gone after, that helps you nail every single other position, because those are guys are going to go out and recruit. And I think that that is maybe something that kind of fell short for previous staffs, is they didn't get a top signal caller in the fold if they needed one early. They either struck out, and that kind of leads a little of the foundation, the bricks to crumble a little bit. But when you look at some of the positions Florida is identifying on the next cycle, cornerback, defensive line, linebacker, I mean, absolutely defense has to be rebuilt, offensive line as well. And they're going to continue to take running backs. I think that that is something that you can expect to be a consistent thing under Billy Napier, because as I just mentioned, there's 2 guys on this roster right now that you could reasonably expect to be headed to the NFL next year or graduate. And I think that that's going to lead to how this class is constructed. But right now, evaluating a lot of prospects, one thing I can say about the staff is that they have done a lot of visits that maybe have gone unreported. I kind of hesitate to say that, because that maybe sounds like a knock on my profession and what we do in a sense, but they have really been low-key evaluating and on the trail, just gathering film and traveling around this 100-mile really radius around Gainesville to evaluate talent this spring, kind of at a higher rate than I've seen recently. There's been more of a focus on the recruiting ranks than necessarily the transfer portal additions, if that makes sense. So seeing the resources devoted there has been pretty impressive. And from what I've seen, they're pushing all the right buttons when it comes to communicating with prospects. And I think that should lead to a lot of this working out in the not so distant future.
All right, one last question. We'll get you out of here. Dan on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, says, Graham, any talk on the portal having less windows or some more restrictions?
Absolutely. Great question. Because that is one of the biggest gripes, Shane. I mean, you know this, man. Coaches hate a lot of the construction of the rules. They don't get breaks. They don't have a lot of time with their family. If they're not out on the road, if they're enjoying themselves, that looks like a negative image to them even, right? I mean, how hard can a lot of these guys work until the NCAA kind of cuts them a break in a sense? They have this massive roster, support staff, biggest one we've ever seen here, but a lot of these guys can't do the dirty work. I hate to even use that term, but they can't do the recruiting. They can't do the communicating. They can go out and evaluate, but they can't go out on the road. Guys like Ryan O'Hara, they can't go out right now at this time and evaluate and build relationships unless the kids are coming to them, and that's not happening right now. So I think that when you look at some of these NCAA rules, they're going to have to expand some of these windows. They're going to have to, I think, cut off the transfer portal to give these coaches a break at a higher rate. And I also think that this is something maybe a little more controversial here, and I'm interested for anyone else's take. Time for another, we can talk about this another time, but you got to have a summer signing period in my mind. I mean, the early signing window and then having one just in February, that doesn't work, because that window where in early December, where coaches are trying to prepare for the postseason, recruit in the transfer portal, manage their current roster because guys are leaving December 5th, and they're trying to sign 2 weeks later by early signing day. I mean, come on. It doesn't work. You need to have a summer signing window. These rules are going to continue to change is what I'm saying. The NCAA is constantly evaluating a lot of these things to ease up on coaches and come up with the best options for prospects to make the right decisions for themselves. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of these changes. I mean, you're asking a lot of these prospects as well to sign with teams at the same time where you're having a ton of coaching changes, not even just at the head coaching level, but from an assistant coaching level. Assistant coaches are recruiting kids and then they're leaving for the NFL or other jobs within a matter of days. And I think that you need to have some changes here so that there is a little more transparency. If someone signs in the summer and then their coach leaves in 6 months, I mean, too bad in my mind, but I feel a little bit worse for someone if they sign and then the guy who recruited them for 18 months heads somewhere else. Maybe that's just me here, but I think that you'll see some alterations here so we have a little bit less controversy per se for things like that.
Yeah, great info, my man. Let everybody know how they can read your work online and follow you on Twitter.
Hey, always my pleasure being here. I hope everyone is doing well out there. I got to say that. You can follow me on Twitter at GrahamHall_. Read me at swamp247.com. That's 247 Sports Florida website. We got a great message board community. Check it out. A lot of info being put out there. Jacob Rudner, as I mentioned, kills it when it comes to baseball coverage, basketball recruiting, football coverage. I mean, the list goes on. I'd run past 9 a.m. here if I went over it all. Blake Alderman, one of the best in the game, been over it in it for longer than a decade. He was out at IMG Academy yesterday. I know that is high school familiar to a lot of people, so a ton of info on the board right now about his stop there. So make sure you check it out. We're always running deals, and they don't want me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you subscribe to an annual membership at Swamp 247, you get a year of Paramount Plus included. So it's the best deal, in my opinion. No disrespect to anyone else out there in the Florida market when it comes to what we do. So if you're interested in subscribing, reach out to me. I'll tell you how to do it. I'll tell you when we're running a good deal. And I hope you take part and join us.
Awesome stuff, Graham Hall. Appreciate your time, my man.
My pleasure. I'll take care out there, man.
Yeah, that's Graham. Join us on the Titan Memorial Hotline. Ruzoga State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Appreciate Buddy and Graham Hall, who does a phenomenal job getting stuff done and giving us great information, joining our program. Tomorrow we'll have JC. We'll do some Peachland Dental picks, and we'll also have Willie Jackson, the new head football coach of the PK Young Blue Wave. Enjoy your day, folks. See you tomorrow. Take care.